This is interesting. Let's cross the globe once again, or the borders. On Tuesday, the 11th of September, 2001, a day like tomorrow, 20 years ago, the foundation of the world's most powerful nation, that's the US, was shaken to its core, and the ripple effects were felt across the globe. Terrorists struck America, the world's superpower. It's now 20 years since that terror attack. How did it happen? What were the ramifications and what changed after that? Duncan Haimba takes a look at 9/11 at 20.
Okay, that's great. Also, would you make everyone aware that we're going to be...
Tuesday, September 2001 remains a dark Tuesday for America, following a terror attack that would result into a paradigm shift worldwide, or simply a new world order in matters security and fight against terror.
My husband, Ron, was on the 94th floor of the second tower, and he called me to say that he had just seen an explosion on the building next to him. He had felt his cheek get warm, and he was watching people fall and or jump out the windows across from him. And he was obviously emotionally distraught and shook up by what he was seeing.
That tragic morning, 19 terrorists, disguising themselves as passengers, boarded 4 local flights in Boston in the United States with the sole aim of hijacking them and using them as weapons of mass destruction. The gang split into 4 groups and had specific timelines to execute their catastrophic mission. The first plane, a Boeing 767 with 92 passengers and 5 hijackers on board, crashed into the North Tower of the New York's World Trade Center at 8:46 a.m. 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., another Boeing with 65 passengers and a second squad of 5 hijackers smashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center as Americans and the entire world were watching real-time events on live television. In 40 minutes' time, it was now in the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C., when at 9:43, another American airline, Boeing 967, carrying 64 passengers, and a group of, again, 5 hijackers rammed into the Pentagon building. 6 minutes past 10, a 4th plane, 757 Boeing with 44 passengers and 4 terrorists, crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The twin towers of the World Trade Center were demolished and 2,977 people were killed in a terror attack which Al-Qaeda, whose nerve center is Afghanistan, took responsibility. However, no one of the 19 terrorists was an Afghan national. The gang was led by Mohammed Atta from Egypt, while 15 of them were from Saudi Arabia. In his address to the nation, US President George W. Bush declared he would vanquish terrorism as he zeroed in on Al-Qaeda and its leader Osama bin Laden. The US president vowed to win war against terrorism and called on the Taliban regime in Afghanistan to deliver to the United States all leaders of Al-Qaeda hiding in their territory. On 18th September, being 7 days after the attack, President Bush signed into law a joint resolution authorizing use of force against those responsible for attacking the United States on September 11. And on 7th October, the US military, with the support of British troops, began bombing Taliban forces, with France, Germany, Canada, and Australia pledging support.
Thanks to our military and our allies and the brave fighters of Afghanistan, the Taliban regime is coming to an end.
By the end of 2014, our combat mission will be completed. At that time, Afghanistan will be fully secured by Afghans.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
We will kill bin Laden. We will crush al-Qaeda. That has to be our biggest national security priority.
The highlight of the invasion by the US and allied troops came 10 years later, in May 2011, when US Special SEALs tracked Osama bin Laden to Pakistan and killed him in a covert operation that lasted 40 minutes.
Good evening. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda.
USA! USA! USA!
For the US, it was mission accomplished. President Obama had delivered on his campaign promise and achieved what Presidents Bill Clinton and George Bush were not able to accomplish. Osama bin Laden was killed, but the international troops still remained for more years. Afghanistan still remained standing on shaky ground that saw three sitting presidents, George Bush, Barack Obama and Donald Trump, visit Afghanistan, making promises that took long.
For many of you, this will be your last tour in Afghanistan. And by the end of this year, the transition will be complete, and Afghans will take full responsibility for their security, and our combat mission will be over. America's war in Afghanistan will come to a responsible end.
The fight against al-Qaeda had a direct effect to Kenya. Before striking at the heart of America, the terror cell had begun by launching peripheral attacks in 1998 when they bombed US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania on 7th August. More than 200 people were killed, with Kenya suffering the biggest number of casualties. According to Dr. Ahmed Hashi, a governance and policy expert, the September 11 attack was a turning point.
Where the whole world changed on its axis, and the public ideas and the public policy and the beliefs of people fundamentally changed.
Kenya, being a dependable ally of the US, continued being a target for terror attacks from Somalia's ragtag terror gang, the Al-Shabaab, an offshoot of Al-Qaeda.
The American military is everywhere. You know they're here in Lamu. You know that there's a terrorist threat to our country from Somalia, from the Al-Shabaab, which is linked to the Al-Qaeda. You know that our young men and women are dying in Somalia, protecting our freedom in this country, protecting us from those terrorists. And it's costing us lives and material. We've been there for a while. The question is, Duncan, are we there to create a state in Somalia? Are we there to keep the peace? Are we there to just have our soldiers act as a buffer zone against the terrorists? What is our policy in Somalia as far as the military is concerned?
In 2021, the US dramatically ended its war in Afghanistan in what has been seen as an end to what might be termed as a futile, expensive exercise after the very Talibans they had kicked out of the capital Kabul staged an equally dramatic comeback when they captured the seat of power despite the presence of US military.
The rapid seizure of much of the country, including the capital, by the Taliban has raised grave fears of a return to past patterns of human rights violations and stoked desperation among many Afghans.
The Americans in Afghanistan did not have an exit strategy. They just left. They abandoned their allies in Afghanistan. The Taliban has taken over. And of course, there's going to be repercussions to 20 years of American involvement in Afghanistan. But our concerns are much more here in the region.
Closer home in the neighboring Somalia, AMISOM troops that has Kenya on board have been in Somalia for 10 years now, fighting the Al-Shabaab terror group, just like the US in Afghanistan against Talibans, and there are concerns on how much has been achieved and why the invasion is taking long.
Rwanda went to Mozambique, Cabo Delgado. There was an insurgency, an Al-Shabaab insurgency. It was stomped out by the Rwandan, South African troops, I believe, and Mozambican troops in 90 days. Business has returned, life has come back to normal. We have to ask ourselves a very fundamental question. Why has the Al-Shabaab not been defeated in Somalia? 1,000, maybe 2,000 people? Why is the intelligence not working? The powers of the world are in Mogadishu. They know they have all the intelligence surveillance equipment. They have all these kinds of facilitations. And we have yet to find even a serious Al-Shabaab leader captured. Something is wrong, Duncan, in Somalia with AMISOM. And we have a responsibility as Kenyans to speak out against those things and say there is something that's not right. And we need a change either in policy and maybe a change in thinking about how to approach state failure in Somalia.
With the US pulling out of Afghanistan after 20 years, the United Nations is now sending a passionate appeal.
There should be no reprisals and no sanctions against the thousands of human rights defenders who have contributed to their people's well-being and rights. The mandates, operation, and independence of the Afghan Independent Human Rights Commission should be respected.
I think the lesson that we have learned is we have to have a much smarter response. We have to have a much smarter infrastructure of intelligence to disrupt.
AMISOM troops are set to exit Somalia towards the end of the year if everything goes as per the plan.
I think that we need to secure our border, and I think that we need to give the people of Somalia the responsibility to fix their country. We've been there all this time, and we still don't see major successes, things that we can really put up as a trophy and say, this is what's happening in Somalia. Terrorism is still continuing. The administration in Somalia under Farmajo has become belligerent to us. And I really believe that Somalia needs a special envoy from Kenya.
The African Union is yet to communicate officially on AMISOM exit from Somalia. Duncan Haemba, KTN News.